the Wave Room, where we listen, speak, and create our own wave. Today, I'm blessed to have a fellow Alaskan, Michaela Stith, on the show. She just released her new book called Whelp, which we'll go over. And she's a climate and social activist and a Duke and Zeta Phi Beta alumna. So I had to represent for my Pike, So do you want to kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your age, where you grew up, and kind of your experience growing up, and a little bit about your book.
Yes, I'm 25 years old. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska, lifelong, and I am currently working in kind of Arctic policy. I work at, it's called the Wilson Center's Polar Institute, which is a think tank about Arctic and Antarctic policies. And I kind of got into that because when I first left Alaska to go to school at Duke University, it became a huge part of my identity, having been coming from Alaska. People called me Alaska when they saw me. And I also am really passionate about climate change policies because I grew up fishing and hiking and doing all of those very Alaska things. And my dad had grown up out in rural Alaska as like the only Black family in his area. And so that part of me is really near and dear to my heart. And I've seen so many changes since I've grown up. I mean, the winters have changed completely from like being able to dig tunnels through the snow to now having like melt periods where it's 40 degrees in the wintertime in December and January. Or I saw an actual wildfire inside Anchorage city limits 2 years ago. Wow. So it's very fast how things are changing in Alaska, 3 times more or at a faster rate than in the rest of the world. And so those are really my passions. And so I was able to get a fellowship from my school to work abroad. And so I was working in Tromsø, Norway, 660 miles north of the Arctic Circle at the Arctic Council Indigenous Peoples Secretariat there.
Okay, so you've been all around then, huh?
Yes, I've been to all the Arctic countries at this point, 8 of them, and a few other places.
So can you name a couple or probably you liked and enjoyed going to?
Yes, so the Arctic countries are the United States with Alaska, Iceland, Greenland, which is part of Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Russia. And so Greenland and Iceland, I would say, were probably my favorites because I went to Iceland studying abroad in college, hoping I could feel a little bit at home, that it would be a little bit like Alaska somehow. And it was very different. I mean, it's a volcanic island, so there was at least different than Anchorage, I would say. Right. There's almost no trees. And there's not a whole lot of.
This is in Iceland or Greenland?
In Iceland, yeah.
Okay.
But the people were really cool. My family, my host mom was this feminist activist in town, so she took me to protests. And my host dad was a musician. We went to concerts and bars with him, and I just found the Icelanders were really, really kind and open. And then we went to Greenland on that same trip, and there it just felt so much like home. I mean, it even looked like home. And
do these places, do they live up to the name? Like, is it like, since it's Greenland, was it really green?
Yeah, and Iceland full of ice. They're actually the opposite of that. Iceland is really green, and Greenland is full of ice.
Oh wow, that's a trip. Okay, so did any of those places? Did they live up to, I mean, I know we both grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. So did they live up? Did they make you feel like home, or was Alaska, is that just a different, vibe?
One of the things that I kind of talk about in my book is maybe they didn't feel like home, like there was a lot of differences between people, but I really enjoy being in places where people are not like me, because I feel like that's the fastest way that you can learn more about yourself and to grow. So did they live up to expectations? I mean, people have all sorts of misconceptions about what the Arctic is like, right? That it's like all icy or always cold.
Blues or yeah. polar
Yeah.
bears running around.
Yeah. I mean, the Arctic is such a diverse place. There's so many different cultures and peoples living all across the Arctic. And the summertime, you have 24 hours of sunlight. So you also get the flip side of the cold of being able to be out all night and have fun out in the non-icy areas as well. Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed it out because I tell people, I'm Samoan, but I was raised in Alaska. I was raised in Hawaii and Alaska, but Alaska's my hometown. And I have to tell people like, because, I get all these questions like, what's it like out there? I heard it's dark, it's snowing all the time. But I have to tell people for one, the scenery, but then for two, it's just the people. I don't know, it's different. It's
very different.
Diverse. It's kind of like, so when I graduated high school and then went off to college, I was culture shocked pretty much everywhere I went, just because it's just different. In Alaska, I mean, we went to the West High School together, and it was one of the top diverse high schools in the nation. And so, yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. So I have to tell people about, there's a lot of cultures out there in Alaska for one, and then there's like, I don't even know, like 100 different languages that are spoke like in the city I grew up in. And so, yeah, I'm glad you kind of relate to that, because I was kind of known as that, like, oh, Alaska, that's kind of, so, you didn't go through that alone. And I'm glad I had someone that can share that experience,
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about your experience at Duke. How did you choose that university? Out of other schools, did you have other school options that you wanted to go to, or why was Duke the lucky enough to get you there?
I'm a first generation college student, so I feel
Luke?
it it was definitely a process. I had a lot of support in high school. I would say like more so than a lot of people have the opportunity to have, unfortunately, with the highly gifted program. But even when I was applying there, my counselors were kind of like, that seems like a stretch school, or
Right. Are you sure?
Exactly. And in reality, I got into like all the schools that I applied to. And I was choosing between Duke and Cornell, and you thought I would actually like look on the West Coast for schools. But I didn't do that. I have some family in Tennessee. And so that was the main reason why I was in that region. And I visited there for the Black Student Alliance Invitational, which is basically all the Black, like PFROSH is what they called them, people who were admitted as freshmen, got to come and meet each other and decide whether they wanted to go to Duke. And like you said, Anchorage is super diverse. And also I'm mixed race, and like Alaska and Hawaii have the most mixed race people per population of all the states. And so it was totally a culture shock for me. Also, there's only about 3% Black people in Alaska and like 6% in Anchorage. So it was a very positive culture shock, because that's something I've been searching for my whole life, as a Black community. And I was in these highly gifted classes, which were primarily all white students. And so I didn't really feel like I got to have that. And so going to Duke was a huge part of like becoming more comfortable with myself and standing firm in my identity and what I believe in, because we had a very strong Black community, at least in the beginning of being there. I think Ebony Magazine had rated it in the top 10 schools for Black students in the US. So it was awesome. I joined, like you said, Zeta Phi Beta sorority, and that was the biggest part of my undergrad. Aside from studying abroad, I went to Mexico and Spain and Iceland and Greenland and all those places.
So did you end up visiting Cornell, or was your visit to Duke like, as soon as you visited, you're like, this is
gotta go.
Like you knew, you know what I'm saying?
I did. I went to both. Crazy. You can tell how much a nerd I am, because I skipped senior prom to go visit Cornell.
No.
I did.
I hear you. You didn't miss out. I'm telling you that. You didn't miss out.
I heard there was a lot of crazy stuff.
Some crazy stuff, but you didn't miss out.
Not good stuff.
Yeah. That's like, it was probably better off. You probably had fun, more fun going on that visit. So yeah, how was that? Did they have a good culture there?
It was not the same. And I think a lot of the students that I met were not very happy. Like they say, Cornell is well, I shouldn't say that because that would be rude. They say it's hard to get out of, basically. It's hard to get out of Cornell.
It's hard to get out of?
Yeah, like usually people won't graduate in 4 years, and you're very stuck in whatever major you want. And those things didn't necessarily make sense to me while I was there. And I think I wish I could have done more research about maybe matching your actual academic and professional interest with the school you're going to better, because Duke has an amazing environment program, but they didn't do much with Arctic or Alaskan issues, and I could have done that better elsewhere probably. But Duke was really fun. Like the Black Student Alliance Invitational was not only informational, like we sat in classes, but I also met my roommate there who I had for the rest of being at Duke, basically. And it just allowed you to have a community and get to know, like I saw people dancing at parties for the first time. They didn't do that in Alaska. Like they
barely, yeah. I'll tell you that even though we were diverse out there, I did not learn my dance moves in Alaska.
No.
I learned how to kind of go to the parties and party, but I didn't learn how to dance. But I tell you that my personal college experience, I learned how to dance out here, kind of like being like everywhere, just like you said, like you saw a different culture, you learn how to dance, or you saw, people actually dancing. I actually learned how to two-step out here. Like if it's a country thing, there's different versions of it. I personally learned the country two-step, but it was, I was pretty much the same way too. Like when I saw people dancing, I was like, dang, you guys actually dance at the parties? I was like,
yes.
let me take some notes. Let me, I'll get down. Give me a couple weeks,
I didn't know, the song Wobble, like I didn't know that actually had a dance to it until my BI.
I just knew like there's a music video, but I'm not sure if there's, how they wobble. Because I know people do different versions. Because like, do you remember the Dougie?
Yes.
What can you?
Okay, so we're a pretty TikTok generation here.
Yeah, there's like, hey, shout out to the, I feel like we had the best generation. I was born in '96, but still, I feel like we had the best of both worlds. But the Dougie, so I just knew the Dougie from California just from YouTube and stuff. But then a lot of my teammates out here, they're all straight from Texas, and there's a Texas version of the Dougie, which is cool too. I personally like the Cali Dougie, but still, but yeah, I haven't seen the wobble dance. I mean, besides from YouTube, so there's probably a way cooler version out there. But,
I was in the South, so I got some of the Southern influences, and a lot of people came down from the East Coast too. So I would say it was mostly East Coast people that I was hanging out with at the time.
Okay, yeah, still, so you had fun. Did you guys? I know the Greek life out there. They have like their own certain dances. Did you guys have that too, or?
Yes, because I'm in a historically Black sorority, and so it's kind of different. Like we also had IFC and Pan-Hel at Duke, which is the historically white sororities and fraternities, much more diverse, as you can tell nowadays. But at Duke, it was really cool to have like a Black community with Black sororities and fraternities. When I first came on, we didn't have the whole Divine Nine, is what they call it, because we didn't have any Qs or Iotas on campus, but we had everyone else. And it like seeing step shows, for example, I did 2-step shows while I was at Duke, and we won both of them.
Okay. Off the yard up in here. Hey. Okay.
So that was like, for just an example of like the types of culture that we had at Duke, that I was like, this is amazing. Where do they do this at? Because they don't do it where I come from. Not to say, I mean, we have tons of different, like you said, culture and expressions of that in Alaska, and rich indigenous cultures as well. But like having people who were my people was really empowering and awesome.
Yeah. So that's cool. It's different. I tell people like, you got to be there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're looking at, I mean, you say you're wanting to go to Duke, like you have to go there to like, we can explain it, but like, you have to like feel that energy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely glad that, you had a good time, just because every university and area in America is, a little different.
Yeah.
That's cool. But I feel the same way. Kind of like how you said, when you're around your people, I feel the same way with Polynesians or Samoans. Leaving Alaska, it's hit or miss, where I go if you're going to run into Polynesians. But every time, I mean, you can be a Samoan from New York, and if I run into you in Texas, oh, it's, we're family, so
Yes,
it's
yes.
cool. Yeah, it's cool to find, you found that at Duke, because I think that's essential for growing, learning, and, you know what I'm saying? Like, learning about your culture and being around them. So, how did you get to Duke? I asked that because I know there's a lot of there's younger kids watching this that are saying like, hey, like, how can I be where she's at? How can I attend something like Duke? Like, what are the steps? I mean, pretty much, I would say. I mean, I'm sure it's like a lucrative journey, but like if there's like a top three things that they can do to get to Duke or universities like that,
Yeah.
what would you suggest for these guys?
I mean, there's all different ways of getting your education. And so I would like encourage everyone to not feel like I have to do it right after school, or especially during COVID. I was like, I would not want to be going to college right now.
Right.
Be sure to know that it's the right thing for you at the right time, I would say, because there's a lot of pressure on it. And like there's different ways you could go to community college for 2 years and then switch to a school. I mean, that there's options. But for me, one thing that I realized that I'd like everyone to know that they might not know, especially if you're 1G or your family is considered low income, that most Ivy Leagues and schools like Duke actually will pay for your college tuition for free if you or family makes less than $65,000 a year. So a lot of
Whoa, say that again. Hold up.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of Ivy Leagues will pay for your entire tuition. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God, dang. I did not
most people
know
don't know that. Like, yeah. So that was something that made me realize, like, oh, I can go to college.
Yeah.
Get in tons of debt. So that would be my first thing I would say. My second thing I would say is that it takes support, like it takes a village. And so I had a college advisor through my highly gifted program. That's just the name of it. And I got a lot of support through that because they had higher funding. But there's like different outlets in order to get college advising help, whether it be just like a person that you know who has applied to college recently, or like reaching out to them and asking if you could ask them some questions about what's confusing during the process. Or there are nonprofits that do college advising. Like I know a lot of kids that after they left Duke, my classmates ended up going and trying to do college advising services. So I say try to find someone to help through the process. And lastly, that would include like getting people to read through your applications, because sometimes those applications are like deep and they are difficult to go through. And you think you're making sense, but it was really helpful to have other people look at it and help me tailor the stories so they were the most effective they could be.
Okay, and then was your support group? Was this like your family? Was it like student counselors at your high school, or?
Yeah, I would say student counselors mostly. Also teachers, like any teachers that. It doesn't matter if you got an A or an F in their class, I suppose, but if you have a personal connection with them at all, then that's usually like someone that you should reach out to, someone who kind of knows you well and will say positive things about you.
Okay.
So someone you trust.
I'm glad you pointed those out, because a lot of kids, a lot of younger kids, they feel like, hey, it's impossible to, even if they're doing average or good in school, it's impossible for me to go to schools like Duke, Cornell, Yale, because they think, the only way is to, either be rich, have an athletic scholarship, or, whatever the case may be. So I'm definitely happy you pointed out, because I didn't even know. And I mean, you heard her. She said, they're looking for, diverse kids to pay for
Absolutely.
their school. So hey, free is for me. So I'm telling you. And she said, at least she said, families under 65,000, right?
65,000, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, don't be ashamed of what your family's making. I mean, take advantage of these resources.
At least apply to see how much financial aid they'll give you, right?
Exactly. Just so at least you can piece things together. I'm like, she just gave top 3 things, but this is a good head start for people. I personally, and don't let just like you were saying earlier, like timing is everything about it. Like, you don't have to go to college right after high school. For me, what I learned in my experience is you can go to community. You can start off at community college. Like, if it's cheaper, start there. I thought personally, I had to go to Division I. I had to go do this, straight out of high school, just because I bought into that. I had to prove myself and this and that. But I noticed I actually left after my first semester. I went to University of Idaho because it was Division I. I had a good package there. I wasn't on full scholarship or anything like that. But I, talking to some student athletes there, they're like, hey, go to junior college. It's a better route. Like, it's cheaper, more affordable for you and your family. And then you have a opportunity to get scouted and looked at by other schools. And so I actually went that route after I left the University of Idaho. And it was a better route for me, financially, for my growth, for my pockets,
Yes.
it did. And
it's okay to change the plan too.
Exactly. So that's what this show's about. Going with the wave, creating your own wave, and learning and from your own experience. But I fortunately, I played junior college for 1.5 years, and then I got a full ride to New Mexico State. So it all came full circle. It all came full circle. So I'm glad you got that to point those things out for those kids listening out there. And so I want to ask, how was your transition from college to the real world been like? And what advice do you have for people struggling to find jobs, even if they have degrees? Because I have a handful of peers that I went to school with, whether they be student athlete or not. They have a bachelor's degree and they can't. It's hard to find a job. Even with that, that's like the new high school diploma, as they say.
Because they want 5 years of experience and a degree.
Exactly. And it's like, I was in school, how could I, you know what I'm saying? It's definitely, I would say, it's harder these days, to find a job and to find a job an entry-level job that you went to school for. So how has that transition been for you? And like, what do you have? Do you have any advice for people struggling or feel like they're stuck, not finding a job post graduate?
Yeah. I remember senior year of college, even I was so stressed out seeing people getting jobs. I was like, should I be a consultant? Like,
yeah, for real. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
And that's not for me. It's not for me, but it's like, we feel like we have to, and it's kind of competitive. It's very competitive for not very good pay nowadays. So for me, I got my fellowship during my senior spring. And so that was basically what a fellowship is like a stipend to work somewhere. So my school paid me some money, but really not like a lot of money, to go live and volunteer somewhere in an organization serving a community somewhere else in the world. And so me being interested in environment, being interested in people's rights and and environmental justice specifically is what I'm interested in. I ended up being able to work at the Arctic Council Indigenous Peoples Secretariat that I mentioned earlier. And basically what that is that the Arctic Council is kind of like the UN, like the United Nations for the Arctic. You have 6 Indigenous peoples organizations who work there representing their people, as well as the 8 Arctic states and ambassadors and high-level officials there working together on policies. And so I was like, I was lucky enough, I would say, to get work and to have it paid for. And what I think is good advice for people is that don't feel like you can't do an internship or a fellowship or a volunteer position right after school, because that's kind of what'll get you into a field. People will allow you to do free labor for them.
Right. Oh man.
People like that.
About that life. No, I'm just kidding. And that's what it is. That's really, I mean, just to be, just frank about it. Like that's literally, how, I mean, personally for me, I've been getting those, internships, but I'm like, man, you mean tell me this is free labor? I'm not, I'm not getting paid, but and that's what a lot of people are saying, or a lot of my peers are saying too. They're just like, bro, what? Like
it's a scam.
Yeah, pretty, that's how we feel. Okay, so that's pretty much what you did.
Yeah, so I got this fellowship and worked really hard. It was tough, like after graduation, because everyone normally like returns to kind of living away from their friends from college. And that alone is difficult because college is this socially or perpetually social situation where you're just always hanging out with friends, going to parties, whatever. And then you leave that and you're kind of yourself again, and you have to figure out who you are, not in relation to these other people. And like that can be kind of difficult.
Exactly.
I just worked a lot. I worked really hard. And and so now, like, luckily that got me into another position in Arctic affairs, but it did take 6 months from the end of my fellowship until I actually got this job that I have now. So it's a process. You have to have patience with it.
Okay. No, that's cool that you saw that, because a lot of people, I mean, we think, oh, as soon as we graduate, the gates are going to open and everyone's going to be throwing money and, apply to us, we'll hire you. But yeah, it's not, it's not like that. And so for those of you watching out there, trust the process, and you might have to, dig a little more, do something that you might not want to do or not get compensated, as you should, for a little bit. And then, look at her, like, that's so cool that you got a job after that. But still, I'm glad we agree on that, because
yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Sometimes I'm just like, dang, is my resume, did they not see the degrees in there? Like I bolded it,
Yeah. And also with it, like having job applications on the internet now, people used to get 10 applications for a job, and now they get like 500 applications for a job. So it's not really you, it's the volume, and there's a lot of people who have college degrees too. Like
everyone has them. And it's just so competitive. So don't be discouraged, guys. I always believe in, if it was meant to be, things will happen, things will come into fruition. So I'm always optimistic. Even though, I've got turned down, here and there sometimes. I'm just like, they're lost. Yeah.
Exactly.
Rebound, but I think it's cool that we can laugh about how like we think about, oh, should I be a counselor, or oh, should I be, because I'm like that. I'm indeed. Sometimes I'm like, man, neurosurgeon. And I'm like, astronaut. Yes. I'm all there like, You know what? I think I do love space, you know?
I could
So,
do that. Yes.
yeah.
No, I applied to I would say I applied to like 30 jobs before I got this one. And not all of them were really like exactly what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
you know.
So
It
yeah,
takes
that's pretty
time.
funny. So hang on in, hang in there, guys. I mean, we're all, in our 20s, mid 20s. So we're all going through the same thing, man. So yeah, keep pushing. So I just want to ask, you said you were 25, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I turned 25 in July actually. So I'm a Cancer baby.
Congrats.
Thank you. So I just want to know what's a day in the life for you look like? Like what's your daily routine? Do you have like, what does it look like for you?
Yes. Well, I'm currently living in Alaska with my family. I would get up, shower, etc., eat a little food,
Mhm.
and I work remotely from home. So then I just go to my little desk upstairs in the living room and turn on my computer and start typing away. A lot of what I do is event organization and management. So that's a lot of emails and setting up meetings. And I also do a lot of writing for my job. So typing out Word documents, stuff like that. And when I was writing my book, I was writing my book outside of work hours. So then like I would turn off my computer and then turn on my personal computer and
Right.
typing there. I really just felt like a computer robot over this past year and a half. And I'm a little bit nervous and very excited to reconnect with human beings again. So
Okay. No, cool. I just asked that just because I feel like I don't know, some people kind of like they're like, man, I'm 24, 25, like what should I be doing? Like what's my, and like is my, my daily routine, like, sometimes people tell me like, hey man, I feel like I'm not doing nothing with my life or this and that.
yeah,
I'm kind of just curious because I mean, my daily schedule, like, I mean, I kind of do the same thing, but different, like I mean, I sleep late, wake up a little late. But like, yeah, I do a little trading here. I'm in the stocks, forex market,
nice.
this, and then, I'm able to, do a couple things. I applied for like 5 jobs, maybe three, 3 to 5 jobs a day. Yeah, so that's kind of my, daily routine. But I just kind of, want to ask that, to let other people know, like, hey, just
We're all doing the
yeah,
same. Yeah, we're not
yeah,
having fun. And yeah, it's I would also say like I've gotten way too addicted to my phone during this period too.
same.
Not be like that. I could leave my phone at home and be okay for the day or something. But
I don't
uh,
know about you, but I'm addicted to TikTok. Like I never
yeah,
used to be like when it started getting popular a year or two ago, and then especially like during when the pandemic first started, I was like, that's for little kids, like not me, that's for high schoolers, middle schoolers, whatever. But now I'm just like,
just on it. People say they'll be on it for hours at a time because
I'm
it's
not
just
on it for hours, but I'm
yeah,
definitely like addicted. Like it's one of my, when you're bored sitting around, you go through Instagram, you close that out, go through Twitter, Facebook,
yes,
TikTok's a part of my, my little thing. But yeah, that
yeah.